Rabbit Run by John Updike, book review. So this is another foray into trying to read John Updike. This book was published in 1960, and it's the story about a 26-year-old man who had been like a high school basketball star. So, you know, kind of one of those people whose kind of peak glory days were in high school. Who's now kind of stuck in this dead-end job that he hates, kind of stuck in this marriage with a kid, and he just gets the urge to kind of run away from it all. I read the book when I was exactly 26 myself, so exactly kind of the age of the character, and I could not identify with it at all. And I thought, you know, the book was published way back in 1960. So I thought this is an interesting example of how times sometimes change, because sometimes you read a book about young people, like, for example, A Separate Peace strikes me as a good example. And it shows you an example of like how young people haven't really changed throughout the years. Like, you know, the same human emotions, the same kind of impulses are there. And then you read a book like this, and it struck me that, wow, I can't identify with any of this. How times have changed. I thought at the time I read this, I think the words I used were, it was a 26-year-old man having a midlife crisis. He's stuck in a job he doesn't like, with a wife he's sick of, and a kid he's indifferent to, and he gets the urge to just run away from it all. Now, right now, I'm actually 40, so am in midlife right now. And it strikes me that maybe I got this a bit wrong. That maybe the type of midlife crisis you have when you're actually at midlife is different to kind of the crisis you have at 26. Where this, what's happening in Rabbit Run is not actually a midlife crisis. This is a 26-year-old life crisis, or I think nowadays people call this like a quarter life crisis, where you're just kind of starting out in life and you feel, is this what I've got? Or, you know, is there something else out there for me? Another thing, some of my college friends and I, when we were in kind of our early or mid-20s, observed what came to be called kind of the 3-year itch, which was kind of people would graduate, people we knew would graduate, get a job, work it for 3 years, and then right about the 3-year point, get the urge to kind of change careers completely and do something else. And yeah, I think maybe that is something that happens to you kind of in your 20s. Now, people by and large are getting married later and having kids later. For better or for worse, I guess. So in Rabbit's generation, it was quite common to have a wife and kid by the time you're 26. It's not uncommon nowadays, but it's also less common maybe. So I wonder, if you're 26 and you have a wife and kid and you're stuck in a job, then do you get the 3-year itch after a few years and you get the urge to run away from it? Now, what happened with most of my college friends, of course, is people got married later, had kids later. So when we were all 26, most of us were still single, with no kids. So you could just kind of move across the country and start something completely different. When you have a wife and kid, things are a lot more complicated, and then you're stuck. Or you could run away from it, but it's a lot more consequential. And that's kind of the situation that this character is in here in Rabbit Run. And I think maybe I was wrong. I initially characterized this as a 26-year-old man who's having a midlife crisis, but maybe this is very characteristic of a 26-year-old crisis. Yeah. Other notes here. This book has a reputation for some terrible sex scenes. I got into a debate with a friend of mine who was an English major. And he was saying, oh, this book is just terrible. John Updike can't write sex scenes at all. I thought it was all right. I mean, like, it would have been terrible if the purpose of this book was to arouse or to kind of, titillate or give sexual feelings. But that's not the purpose of it at all. There's a very cynical view of sex in this book. The characters in this book never engage in sex for the sake of sex. They've always got an ulterior motive behind the sex. And from that perspective, I think John Updike's descriptions of it are okay for what it is. I don't know. He conceded half the point to me. He said, you're right, he probably isn't aiming to titillate. I just think his sex scenes suck all around though, whatever their purpose. And he quoted, his love buckled inside her, as kind of some of the narration he found just terrible. And then just a few further thoughts. One thing I really liked about this book was the full characters. So every character in this book, even the supporting characters, are fully developed and three-dimensional. During the course of the story, we get to see things from everyone's perspective and sympathize with all the characters. I particularly liked the portrayal of Reverend Eccles, who has the thankless job of trying to bring Rabbit back into the fold. He's a full character with struggles and problems of his own, not just simply a plot device, although he does serve an important function to the plot of being the person who's got to bring Rabbit back into the normal life. So yeah, all in all, I think I'd recommend this book.